The new Fujifilm 200 is finally out, but is it Fuji or secretly Kodak? When this film was announced, some internet sleuths on Reddit found that the curves and graphs shown in the tech sheet looked like they were copied and pasted straight from Kodak Gold 200. So, of course, that set the film internet ablaze. Is this film Fuji or is it just repackaged Kodak Gold? My friend Nico also did a whole video on the whole thing, but of course, nobody could get their hands on it until it actually hit shelves. It finally did. And I was able to get a couple of rolls, as well as some in-date Kodak Gold 200. And I went ahead and got some of the original Fujicolor 200 film to test against. So we're going to shoot all three and see how they compare. Now, I want to do this comparison both objectively and subjectively. So I have three cameras. They all take the same lens mount, so I'm just going to move the lens from one to the other. That way we don't have any sort of color bias from different lenses. And we're just going to set up a tripod, take a few shots, move cameras and lens in between, and get a good look. That's the subjective. The objective, I'm going to expose each on my sensitometer. We'll then read those patches on the densitometer, and we'll graph them. Now, a word about this. My sensitometer is a halogen source, so it's a full spectrum source, and it's filtered to be daylight balanced, but I've not fully calibrated it for color negative film, so the curves that I'm going to produce may not match the graphs. That's okay. I'm not looking to see if Kodak Gold is actually Kodak Gold, but we will be able to see if there are differences between the new Fujicolor 200 and Kodak Gold, or is it more like the older Fujicolor 200? Or is it different than both? Is it a completely different film? The idea is to see if this film is a repackaged product or not. Now bear in mind, this is a film released in the North American market. It is not a worldwide release, so that is something to keep in mind. So if you are shooting C200 in the EU or Australia, Japan, something like that, that probably is not this film. This seems to be specifically to the North American market. So keep that in mind as you watch. So let's go ahead, pack all this stuff up, go out, take a few shots, and then come on back. Alright, now that we're back, we're going to load the film up and develop it. I want to develop all of it together in my Jobo over here, and so I'm going to be using a multi-tank 5, and I've got 5 35mm reels. I want to load up the center 3. That way I don't have a role influenced in processing by either the end of the drum or the funnel side closest to the lid. That should keep everything just about even. So let's do some processing here. Now that everything is processed, we've got it graphed, we've got the shot scanned. Let's take a look at the first chart. This is the Kodak Gold 200 by itself. So we've got our red, green, and blue from bottom to top. They are color coded so we can see which one's which, and there you have it. This next one is the old Fujicolor 200. Again, color coded red, green, and blue. And then finally what I've got is a chart of the new Fujicolor 200. Again, red, green, and blue channels. So let's go ahead and overlap some of these just for a point of comparison. Let's look at how a typical Fujifilm differs from a Kodak film in their curves. So here's the old Fujicolor 200 on top of the Kodak 200. Next, we can see how the new Fuji 200 compares to the old Fuji 200. And looking at this, you can see that there is definitely a difference. Now, it is a different film, so a difference is possible regardless of who makes it. But let's go ahead and look at what we know everybody wants to see, and that is the Kodak Gold 200 curves next to the new Fujicolor 200 curves. And as you can see, they track pretty darn close. The curves are almost identical. When we put the old Fujicolor 200 curve on top of there, we can just see how different that is from the other two. So here's all three curves at once. Not looking good for the new Fuji being different than Kodak Gold. It also doesn't help that on the box it says right here, see if you can see it. It'll focus that close. It may not. Made in the USA. Yeah, we might be able to zoom in on that. Can we get closer? Maybe a little closer. Yeah. Now that we've seen the objective curve portion, let's look at some samples. Now, I want to warn you, these samples are not good. And mostly it's because I didn't want the operation of the scanner to be biased in color, so I did no dust correction whatsoever. I also did no color correction. So looking at the histogram, I used Epson Scan to scan these on my 4990 flatbed scanner. Using the histogram, I moved the sliders to the very edge of the highlight and shadow portion, and then the middle slider set at 1.0 for each of the three channels. I did that for all the images. It's not a great scan, but it is at least preventing any clipping and putting the middle slider directly at the 1.0 gamma. This should just give a, while not a perfect scan by any means, at least a neutral scan for everything, so that we don't have any color corrective bias to create a false comparison. So they aren't good, but they should at least show us the differences between the films. So keep that in mind. There you go. So it looks like this is just repackaged Kodak Gold 200. Now, is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. If you're looking for Fuji color film, this is going to give you Kodak Gold look, because it is Kodak Gold. Why? Is this some grand conspiracy for Fuji having all their film made by Kodak? Is Kodak film made by Fuji? No. This is business. Fuji has already said before that their production in Japan was greatly disrupted by COVID. Just about everything was. The distribution lines from Japan to the US, greatly disrupted. It's been a pretty bad couple of years. So, Fujifilm North America contracted with Kodak to get film that's already in North America to the North American market, because it was easier and cheaper than getting anything from Asia to the North American market. It's a stopgap measure. If you like Fuji and you don't like Kodak, this is only a short-term solution until they can get everything back to normal. So don't worry if it's not the kind of film that you normally like, but this is what you have. The point is, you need to go out and shoot film. If you like the Kodak look and you can't find Kodak, buy this. You'll get exactly what you're looking for. If you like the Fuji look and you can't find anything but this, go out and shoot it anyway. Because shooting film tells the manufacturer that their time is not wasted and they need to keep making film. Because if we don't buy it and we don't use it, they're just going to shut it down. So, you need to... What am I stepping on? It's a soapbox. Use some film. Shoot some film. This is decent. It's a consumer grade. It's not the same as your Provia, your 400H, your Portra, but it's still film to get in your camera and go and use. Well, that's enough preaching from me. Thank you for watching. Go out and shoot some film regardless of what it is, and help keep those films alive. We'll see you next time.